Today on the Grill Top Experience, I'm going to show you how to use the cold grate technique on a regular Weber kettle without buying the Slow N Sear. Now, I don't have anything against the Adrenaline BBQ Company or their product, and I'm not going to make a recommendation for or against buying it. I just wanted to see if you could use their technique without their product. If you want to check out how they did it with the Slow N Sear, I'm going to link to their videos down below. So one of the problems that you're going to run into is that these kettle grates don't spin very well, at least not the ones that come with it. And so what I found works pretty well is if you go and get the cheaper version of the Weber grates, because they don't have anything that sticks out on the bottom, it makes it spin a whole lot easier. The other reason why it's good is because the original Weber grates are very thick. They hold in a lot more heat. These ones are thinner, which helps the cold grate technique work even better. So before I show you how I did it, let's walk through the steps of the cold grate technique. I'm going to use a vegetarian steak to show you how it goes. The cold grate technique is really just a modified reverse sear. And so you start it off with low temperatures, 250 degrees, 225, somewhere around there, indirect with the hot side over here and the steak over on the cool side. Once the temperature of the steak reaches about 110 to 120 degrees, it's time to move it over to sear it. And so you take this off and you fire up this side as hot as you can get it. You go ahead and put your steak on the cool side, and then you flip it around, and for 1 minute you cook it on the hot side. When the minute's up, you flip it over and put it on the cold grate side, because this side is hot, these grates have been cooling off, and you rotate it back around so it's over the heat. You're going to repeat this twice, so you're going to flip it back over to the original side, cook it for another minute. Once that's done, flip it over to the final side, and then cook it over on the hot side. The reason why it works so well is because the heat doesn't get stored in the grates because it cools off every time, and so instead of getting those grill lines, you get a perfect sear every time. To cook the steak, get enough coals lit to bring the kettle to 250 degrees Fahrenheit and place them on one side of the grill. Then place the steak on the opposite side and cover it. Once the steak has reached 85 degrees Fahrenheit, it's time to flip it over, because this helps the steak cook evenly. It's also a good time to start another chimney of charcoal for the next step. Once the steak has reached an internal temperature of 110 degrees, it's time to take it off. Now let's get the charcoal started for the next part. Remove the grill grates and dump a chimney of charcoal on the same side. You're going to try to get the coals as even and level on top to ensure even cooking, so I shoot for about 1 inch below the grates. I grabbed my barbecue hairdryer and used it to stoke the coals. Now, important life tip, don't use your wife's hairdryer. Dry off the steak with a paper towel. This removes any extra moisture and improves the sear. Now, some will put rub on it at this point. Just make sure it doesn't have any sugar in it, or it'll be blacker than my dress shoes when you're done. Then, coat both sides with your favorite oil to keep it from sticking and enhance the browning. Now for the reverse sear. Put the steak opposite the coals and set your timer for 1 minute and rotate the steak over the coals. Now, it won't look like much at first, but the fire will build as the fat renders and drips down on those hot coals. When the minute is up, rotate the grate to bring the steak to the opposite side, then flip it back over to the hot side for 1 more minute. You're going to repeat this process and cook both sides 1 more time for 1 minute each. Now, I have to warn you, at some point you're going to question if this was a good idea. I mean, that steak wasn't cheap, and now it's completely engulfed in flame. Your instincts will tell you to take it out of the fire. But just relax. It'll all be over in a minute. Check the temperature, and if it needs to go a little bit longer to reach your desired doneness, put it on the cool side and leave the lid cracked for a bit. After it's rested, it's time to cut in and see how we did. Now that is a solid medium with a fantastic crust. Okay guys, there are no leftovers. That turned out absolutely fantastic. By searing that, you get this really good crust across the entire steak instead of just where the grill marks. You essentially make the whole top of the steak a big giant grill mark. And so 2 thumbs up for this method. Thanks to the Adrenaline BBQ Company for teaching me it, and I wanted to share it with all of you guys as well.